Welcome back, folks. It's Golden Age of Gear with Joey and Derek. Derek and Joey, your two pals.
That's right. It's another wonderful Thursday.
It is Thursday.
It is, which is normally when these come out, which is great.
That we don't have to pretend it's Thursday when it's not.
That's right.
Nothing makes me feel like a bigger phony than when I'm here on a Monday saying Happy Thursday.
Yeah, that's terrible. We would never do that.
Yeah. You've been changing your clothes a lot.
I know. I had this dumb idea that I was like, well, we don't want everybody to know that we batch shoot these. And then I was like, I changed my shirt and Joe's wearing the same thing. I'm like, and his drinks don't change. And I'm like, shit. So just spoiler alert, we shoot these as many as we can in a day.
Yeah. I mean,
well, we both travel a lot for our jobs. So coordinating doing this is sometimes a big challenge.
Yeah. So our best bet is we do them all on the same day, and there we go. You've taken a peek behind the curtain. You know all about the wizard.
That's right.
Today we're featuring a very special pedal, the world's largest guitar pedal.
Yes.
So this is an Overdrive pedal that was. I believe that I have this right. That it's the brainchild of my pal Gareth from Standalone Productions. He's a multi-instrumentalist, recording guy. He does tons of music for film and TV, and he just he plays every instrument like a total beast. And he's a crazy engineer. And so he was looking to come up with an overdrive, a tube-driven overdrive pedal, and so he teamed up with this dude, Simon, from AnalogTube, who makes, if anybody's familiar with recording gear, he makes a really incredible variable mu compressor that's very akin to a Fairchild style compressor. And he's an absolute pro audio, I mean, that's such a dumb word, but he's an absolute guru in that department. So they teamed up and they designed this together. So this is designed by a guy who really knows his stuff.
Yes.
Not unlike Dan, like total genius kind of stuff. With the intention for this to function like a studio tool. So it's basically like a studio grade tube-driven overdrive. It's got an absolute boatload of output on tap, so it can be used as a preamp. I use it just as a drive pedal. But you've got some really cool features on it. It's got both a high pass and a low pass filter. The high pass is fixed at 75 hertz, so it's basically like a demudifier.
Okay.
Again, very studio specific kind of thing.
Yep.
And then the low pass filter is variable, so you can kind of dial in what the top end is doing, and also you can use this on a mono mic on a drum kit or a vocal. Like, it can be used in a lot of. My brother really likes it on bass. It's such a killer pedal. But I'll just make some sounds through it.
Yeah.
So this is just the D25. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you can adjust the bias as well as the power sag. So as you turn up the bias, you get a little less drive from the tube, but I'll just crank it all the way up.
Yes, it's cleaning up.
Yeah. Just gives you a little.
Fantastic.
It's so lovely. I mean, I like it with the bias all the way down, basically as dirty as it'll get. But you can get it into kind of fuzz territory. Yeah. So, you're starving, I guess the sag is starving the voltage to the 12AX7. Do you want to take it for a spin?
I do. I have so many questions.
Okay.
So,
can we hit pause just really quickly?
Yeah.
I'm Zoom.
You know that we didn't stop, right?
Oh.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. I was like, this is perfect because I know we're not stopping.
So that's obviously the power sag as extreme as it'll go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool.
That's cool. And if you hit it harder with another pedal, I mean, it's just, it's pretty amazing. So there's with the filter on. So you can totally mud it up too. I'm not entirely sure how you would use the low pass filter sort of all the way up, but
I mean, you could do it for like that. Thank you for making it so much harder to play. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, operationally, it's really, really quiet.
Yep.
So the pedal itself doesn't make a boatload of noise, which is pretty impressive for tube-driven gear. But again, that's going to be the strength of Simon. God, I hope his name is Simon. Also, shout out to Brandon Marr, who's a friend of Evan Lahasky, who has a company called Evan Sells Pedals on Revv, and he and I have done a fair amount of business together in the last little while. And he said, man, when you guys do one of your golden age of gear, can you please do the Love Bomb? My buddy Brandon is dying to hear about this thing. So
yes,
this is shout out to Brandon. This is for you.
Yeah, it sounds really great. And that you just touched on it. What I was going to say, my biggest observation about it was it's so quiet for like fuzz or for just
seriously
a drive. Like it is so unbelievably quiet.
Yeah.
Like that's a decent amount of gain.
Yeah, I mean, like if I dime it and turn your volume off on your guitar,
yeah,
you know, there's nothing.
There goes our monetization. Yeah. So what do you primarily use this for? Because obviously this is a kind of like when we did the flux capacitor thing, like delay thing. Like I would never really put that on my board and use it. Mm-hmm. But it is something that like when I'm just messing around, having it on a table or on a desk, ton of fun. But so, I mean, you mentioned drums, you mentioned your brother using it on bass, but what do you use this for when you're recording?
I use it like an overdrive pedal. You know, it's kind of like the special sauce. And I have toured with this, believe it or not. Like I
believe it.
Yeah, I believe. I built a little pedal board that had a true bypass loop with an in and out on it, and I sat it on top of my amp, and that's how I integrated it into my rig. It's big, right? So that's the main sort of barrier to entry, is it's very large.
It is half the size of the normal like Temple audio board that I would use.
Yeah. So you could mount stuff on top of it if you were really determined to use it and sort of save on space. But ultimately, that's not really what it's
not
necessarily designed for, unless you got a big rack of stuff that you can chuck it on, and maybe you have somebody who you pay an annual salary to operate it for you.
Yes.
But for me, I don't let stuff like that like deter me. I'll build a rig around something like this so that it's like, when I had this on the road was the summer of 2023. And my pedal board was built in such a way that this would fit on top of everything when I closed the lid. And so it was a little extra time to set up, but barely. You know, I'm running one extra. I had a stereo, like I had a 2-cable loom that I built. So it was like one cable bundle that went to the back of the amp, color coded. So it wasn't, you know, there's no extra. And then the power supply, it needs a lot of juice. So the power supply for this thing is 9 volt center positive, but 3 amps. So it needs a lot of, you know, but it sounds incredible.
Yeah. I've always appreciated that, you know, watching your rigs evolve over the years, because I feel like you can't sit still when it comes to your pedal board or whatever your rig is. And, you know, watching you go from, you know, like, I think I probably mentioned it in another episode, but when you were using the Torpedo cab for one song, for one part, because you really liked the room reverb, there was the, like the reverb that was attached to the IR. And the fact that you said you built like a mini board for that thing. And when you told me that, I was like, shit, that's so much extra work. I would never do that. Like, I would literally just be like, well, this is the reverb pedal I'm going to hit for this part, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think for me, like half of the fun is dreaming the sound up.
Yeah.
So, you know, with a rig like that, like the novelty did eventually wear off, where it was like, okay, now I'm not yearning for the sound. I dreamt it up. I saw it sort of come to fruition. I reaped the little benefit from it that I could sort of
the
milk,
joy. Yeah.
And then was like, okay, that was fun. That's not something that I need. And I think, like, for me, I'm always just sort of chasing inspiration around, and I wind up finding things that I go, this needs to stay. This is special. This is something that I really, really love. This was fun. It was cool, but on to the next thing.
Yeah, I find, like, for me, I find that even when I think about building, like, I need to build a new board, right? And by need to build a new board, what I mean is I've torn my board apart so many times that we just, honestly, when we're filming this, like, I came back from NAMM like a week and a bit ago. And before we left for NAMM, we stole the power supply from my board because we were building new boards. We stole, I don't even know what else, but a bunch of shit off of my pedal board got taken to go to NAMM. So now I don't have a board. I think also all of the cables, we were like, these are nice short patch cables for just quickly clicking things together.
Yeah.
So I need to build a new board, and, you know, I have like a Gig Rig G3 that I bought from Dan like 2 years ago that I still haven't put on anything, just because I just haven't done anything with it. But I often think about, like, when I build my board, I'm almost always looking at, like, okay, well, you know, have a real Klon. It is the best of that sound. There's no way in hell I'm going to put it on my board. I don't want to go out with it. I don't know why, because I'm not going anywhere besides my brother's church. Like, it's not like I'm taking it out to gigs. But I often opt to be like, well, I have this sound for when I want to use it and when I want to mess around with things here. But if I'm going out to play, I'm almost always like, okay, what's the next best thing that will get me there? But I think I need to take a bit of a lesson from you and be like, no. I have this thing and it's awesome, so it should be on there. So,
I mean, I'm very much a proponent to that. I think there's, like, diminishing returns. You can, you know, if I had, you know, I don't know, Bonamass is such a great example of someone who has an insane collection.
Yes.
But I don't find myself resenting him the way that I do, like, you know, lawyers or doctors who hoard gear, because he's like, when he bought Lowell George's Dumble, I was so excited because I knew that it wasn't going to be put into hiding.
Right.
Where it has been for the last however long. And I knew that amazing piece of music history was going to continue to live on and make great music.
Yeah.
And I admire that so much about him. He has expensive taste, no doubt. Like, the dude does not need to tour with $250,000 Les Pauls, but he does, because that's what he likes, and he's in a position where he can have that stuff. And I'm all for it. Where I find myself getting frustrated is when people have such great stuff but the thing that makes something like that beautiful is because it was shared. Like Lowell George's Dumble has zero value without Lowell using it. And so for it to continue getting used, I think is like, that's like, I mean, maybe it's the sort of, I don't know, whatever, the altruist in me, but I think that that's what this stuff is made for.
Yeah, that's why I've always had a policy that like any of my friends that are local here, anything that I have, if you want, like that's how you and I became, honestly, how we probably became better friends was me saying like, oh yeah, well I have this because you were talking about some piece of gear. I'm like, oh, I have that, and you're like, could I try it? I'm like, yeah, of course, like yeah like whatever it is, and I do that with anybody local that I'm close with. That I'm like, oh yeah, like if there's anything that I have here, I mean, most of the time, the walls that are, the amps that are on our amp wall here at Revv, like they don't get played very often, right? Because I don't play out anymore and I don't do any recording. So it's mainly just for, hey, I got this and I love it and I don't need to get rid of it, so I'm not going to. But, Paul will call and be like, hey, I'm doing this. I've got this band coming in and like, yeah, can I borrow one of your Friedmans? I'm like, yep, no problem, And that's kind of how I've always viewed that, is that like, I don't send them out to people out of town anymore because I've had some problems with shipping stuff where I go like, it's not worth it.
Well, and that's a lot of extra work, but
yeah. It happens sometimes. Like there's some stuff that goes to Nashville that I'll be like, if Sean wanted something or Rob Baker or somebody wanted something, I'd be like, yeah, I'll send it down. And then normally I would just be like, I'll ship it down and then just hang on to it. And then next time I'm in time, I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I really appreciated about when I met Tom Bukovac. I bought the 65 Super Reverb that's behind you from him in 2021, I think.
Yeah.
And when I went over to his place to try it, I mean, he was like a kid in a candy store, like just bringing out like guitar after guitar, being like, if you guys ever played, this, and he comes out, and I remember him being like, you guys want to try the Burst? And we're all sitting there and we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and we were in his kitchen, right? And like he comes out and he's got, I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was like a 60s, like double bound telly that's a Burst. And he's like, oh, gotcha. And I'm like, that's not the Burst. Yeah, okay. So anyway, but like just so excited to be able to be like, here, you got to try this because this thing is cool, which is the spirit of what this podcast is actually about. It started with me being like, hey, I have this thing and you got to try it.
Yeah.
Anyway, like Tom brought out his 58 Burst and I got to try it, and I will go on record and say I think it is the coolest guitar that I've ever played. It was set up flawlessly. It was the only guitar that I've ever played where when you were just like hanging on to a note, right? It sustained to a harmonic, but completely clean through that Super Reverb.
Right.
And I was like, I've never had a guitar do this.
Yeah, right.
And there was not a dead spot on it.
Yeah.
And he had said that I won't go through the whole backstory of how he got the guitar, but he got it because somebody was like, you need to have a Burst. And he was like, don't need it. And after he got it, he said that he had decided that like, no matter what, he had to let anybody that he was around try it because they had to experience the same thing that he experienced by having it. Because it is a special guitar. I have played 59 Les Pauls that are pieces of shit. So
totally,
that are $300,000.
Yeah, I played a few dogs that made me not believe, but then I've played a couple good ones where you go, well, I still maintain I would never spend. I mean, not that I'm in a position, but if I were in the position to, I would never spend that kind of money on a guitar ever. But who knows? If you've got enough money that 300 grand is like, yeah, let's do it, then maybe I would. But I don't know, not for me. But
yeah, I think it depends. Like, I don't have that kind of money to spend on a guitar, and for me, it wouldn't make any sense even if I did have it because I don't make my living playing that. With Tom, I think it's smart because those things aren't going down in value. So like you now have this investment piece. So if you can afford it,
totally.
I think it makes sense to be like, okay, I have arguably the best tool for my job.
Yeah.
And it's also
I mean, that's also an inheritance for your kids.
I was going to say, it's ever increasing in value. So I do get it. I do feel that, like, well, I mean, you and I were together the first time either of us played a Dumble.
Yeah.
And same thing there. Like, that Dumble that we played, sorry, Blackbird, that Dumble is a piece of shit compared to a lot of amps that I've played. Like, I wouldn't pay, apart from the fact that I knew I could resell it for 150 grand, I wouldn't have paid $2,000 for the Dumble the way that it sounded and felt when we tried it.
Yeah.
I have since played, another half a dozen or more of them. And there's a few of them that I'm like, yeah, I think this might be the best amplifier I've ever played in my life.
For
like,
sure.
It's unbelievable. But
and the stories match up with that,
yes.
like that's, he built them for the individual, and and there's a famous story. So like the Overdrive special was basically designed for Robin Ford. Robin was using, I think he was using a Bassman.
Yep.
Either Bassman or a Super Reverb, and he had got Dumble to mod it for him, and that's when Dumble kind of had the idea for this. There's this sound, Robin is really into saxophone players, and so he wanted this really like sustainy kind of reedy tone, and that's kind of where the Overdrive special was born. But so Robin being one of the more famous Dumble users, the story goes that he and Larry Carlton were on tour together, and they swapped 1/4-inch cables, and neither of them sounded good through each other's Dumble.
Right.
And nor did they I'm sure they sounded great through each other's Dumbles, but they didn't like them.
Right.
Like Robin plugged into Larry and Larry into Robin's, and they were like, ugh.
Yep.
So it's just such a crazy thing. How do we get on that topic? This pedal's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This I feel like there's magic sauce in this pedal to me, the same way that like when I plug into a really special amp.
Yeah.
And there's like, I don't use it all the time, but when I do use it, it's like, this is like the secret weapon. This is when I need, because it's full of character, and it's full of harmonics, and it's full of this great rich tone. Sometimes it's like it's too much for what you're doing. Sometimes it's like it's not about the electric guitar. It's the song or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it's like time for a special sound, that's when the love bomb comes out.
How much is it? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. They're not cheap.
Hundreds or thousands?
It's probably in the thousands. Yeah.
Okay.
I cannot remember for the life of me. I should know that.
Let us know in the comments how much these are worth, so I know whether or not I should be keeping my eye out to find one. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool product.
Yeah. Super cool. And I do think these guys are working on some other stuff together. I've certainly encouraged them to do so.
Cool.
I know everybody's going to say they should build a smaller one. I don't think they're going to. I think that defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I've taken a peek in there. It's not super complicated looking, but I mean, I imagine a lot of nothing in this thing, it hasn't been thought of.
Yeah. Oh, how much is it?
$2,000.
$2,000. Okay.
But I mean, like, if you think about it as a piece of studio gear instead of a pedal,
yeah,
that's like a studio compressor is $2,000 or more, or significantly more. But I think probably a big part of how they're able to achieve the low noise floors, being able to keep things far away from each other, and stuff like that.
So no crosstalk.
I don't think they may try to shrink the size a little bit at some point, but I just don't think it's not really what it's meant for.
No, and I mean it's cool, and if they're selling them and if people are buying them at $2,000, there's not a lot of incentive to change.
Well, and there's some pretty big names using them. Like I think I got my hands on one. Was lucky enough to get my hands on one because it was like, the dude from Guns N' Roses, not Slash, but I don't know. It's like guys of that caliber were snapping them up.
Right.
Yeah, and they're not like
Richard Fortus or somebody.
Yeah, Fortus. Yeah. They're not like readily available. I don't necessarily think so.
Very cool.
But it's like I said, it's one of my prized possessions. It's very special.
I liked how every sound that I played with it was usable. Like didn't matter what you what you turned there. I was like, nope. Like it can be, it can become harder to play and stiffer, right? But the sounds are all still usable. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is it can do whatever you want it to do.
Yeah.
This thing pushes a tube in every way that a tube can be pushed for this application, and it's all glorious.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for bringing that one in. That's a great one.
Yeah, you can borrow anytime.
I won't, but I don't have time to play the shit I have. But I will probably be like, hey man, that thing that you have, like, bring that down again.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week.